There are many great mysteries in the world of Arda. One of the more famous ones is of course Tom Bombadil, whose origin and nature remain completely unexplained. But Tom Bombadil is not alone in that, because there is another being in Arda who, to those who know the stories from the elder days, offers a far greater mystery. For where Tom Bombadil is a being who can be regarded as good, or at least neutral, this being is pure and utter evil. Great, hideous, powerful, a body seemingly made of utter darkness, and powerful enough to drain light itself and leave nothing behind. Since time immemorial, she was evil. But she was not under the command of a Dark Lord. What was she? She who drained the Two Trees of Valinor, who nearly destroyed the Dark Vala Melkor Morgoth. Who was Ungoliant? Welcome, Meldonyar. I am happy to see so many new faces here, and I hope to see more of you next time, when we will look at another nightmare creature that stalked the night not just in the elder days, but all the way down to the days of the War of the Ring. So be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be reminded when the next chapter starts. But this week we ask ourselves, who was Ungoliant? The legends of Ungoliant stretch far back in the history of Arda, beginning many ages before the War of the Ring. Although few even knew of the existence of something like her, that all was to change abruptly. And that change came when the Undying Lands, the home of the Valar, was at the peak of its beauty. In those days the world was illuminated by the Two Trees of Valinor, Telperion the Silver and Laurelin the Golden. They had been the light of the world for thousands of years, ever since, as the legends told us, the destruction of the two lamps, Iluin and Ormal. But whilst the Valar and the Light Elves enjoyed their splendor for many ages, the Blessed Realm's demise was long overdue. It was Melkor, the source of all evil and master of Sauron, who would end this peace once and for all. In his war against the Valar, he made his way to the south of Valinor, to the very southern end of the continent of Aman, to the Darklands where nothing dared go, not creature, nor elf, nor Vala. It was here in Avathar, the Forgotten Shadowlands, that Melkor sought out Ungoliant, the monstrous spider of darkness that, some say, had long ago disowned Melkor. Melkor, however, dressed himself once again in the form that he had worn as the tyrant of Utumno, a Dark Lord, tall and terrible. And there, in the deepest, darkest ravines, where Ungoliant had consumed even light itself, and beyond the sight of even Manwë in his highest halls, Melkor met the ancient terror, and he made her his proposal. But as his plans would take her out of her safe darkness at the end of the world, and into the very heart of the domains of the Valar, she was torn between lust and fear. Yet Melkor promised her that, if her unending hunger was still not sated after their crime, he would give her anything she still desired. So easily Melkor had made that promise, for he believed that even the great hunger of Ungoliant would be sated after this evil task. This task to utterly destroy the light of Valinor. Properly bribed, Ungoliant shrouded herself and Melkor in a cloak of purest darkness, and thus they made their way north to Valinor. And there in the very heart of Valinor, upon the hill Ezelohar, they reached their goal. Melkor laughed as they reached the hill, and he laughed still when his spear struck the two trees. Their sap poured from their wounds as if it were blood, and Ungoliant sucked it up eagerly. She drank deep, sinking her beak into the wounds and sucking each of the two trees dry, from crown to root, and filling the dying trees with her withering poison. And as she drank the light of Valinor and emptied the sacred wells of Arda, she grew. But her hunger would not be quenched. So together, whilst the lands of Aman were cast into darkness and disarray, and all felt the wound of the blessed lands, Melkor and the great Ungoliant made their way further north. For Melkor not only desired the destruction of Valinor, but also the greatest and most beautiful things the children of Ilúvatar ever created: the 3 Silmarils of Feanor. In the north of Valinor, in the fortress of Formenos, Melkor killed the first king of the Noldor, Finwë, and brought death to the undying lands. And he raided the vaults of the Noldor, stealing not just the 3 Silmarils, but also their other jewels and creations, which all shone with the light of Valinor. As they fled Aman to Middle-earth, Ungoliant, however, reminded Melkor of his promise. For even after having consumed the 2 trees of Valinor and shrouding the entire world in darkness, her hunger was not sated. So Melkor gave her the lesser jewels of the Noldor, but that did not sate her hunger either. She too had now seen the Silmarils, and she desired to consume their light as well. And when Melkor denied her that request, she attacked. Melkor had once looked down upon her, but now, whilst dressed in his tall and terrible form of the first Dark Lord, she was still greater than him. The dark spider had swollen and grown with the light she had consumed, and terror filled Melkor as he realized she was overpowering him. Mountains shook, and the earth trembled from Melkor's cry. And in their answer, all the greater beings that served him came forth to save their master. With their fiery whips, the Balrogs attacked her, rending her webs, and eventually chased Ungoliant off. She fled south again, eventually finding a home for herself in Nandungortheb, the valley below the Mountains of Terror. There she lay her hideous brood, infesting the land with monstrous spiders, and cleansing that place of life and light. And eventually, some elves and men say, Ungoliant fled again to the furthest south, where she let her growing hunger overcome her, and devoured herself. Though that too is only a legend. But this still leaves us with one vital question. What was she? Was Ungoliant just a monstrously sized spider? Was she perhaps an Ainu, meaning an immortal spirit like Melkor, Sauron or Gandalf? Or was she something altogether different that Tolkien never really wrote about anywhere else? The Silmarillion tells us the following. The Eldar knew not whence she came, but some have said that in ages long before she descended from the darkness that lies about Arda, when Melkor first looked down in envy upon the kingdom of Manwë, and that, in the beginning, she was one of those that he corrupted to his service. And later, as the Valar try to understand what happened, it tells, for though the Valar did not yet understand fully what had befallen, they perceived that Melkor had called upon some aid that came from beyond Arda. So, what does that mean? It tells us that Ungoliant had once dwelt as a disembodied spirit in the vastness of creation. She descended into Arda only after Melkor and his host of corrupted spirits had come into the world. For a time she had served him, though not yet in the form of a spider, for it says, "She had disowned her master, desiring to be mistress of her own lust, taking all things to herself to feed her emptiness. In a ravine she lived, and took shape as a spider of monstrous form, weaving her black webs in a cleft of the mountains. There she sucked up all light that she could find, and spun it forth again in dark nets of strangling gloom, until no light more could come to her abode." So by the time of the Two Trees, Ungoliant had become a physical being, fully incarnated into her arachnid form and no longer able to leave it and live as a disembodied being, as she had once before. This had given her great power within the physical world of Arda, but it had also come with a major weakness. She was now physical. She needed food. But as she ate, she would grow, both in size and power, thus needing more food to maintain her strengthened body. And she needed to eat, else she would starve. So, if she once was an incorporeal being, where then lies her deeper origin? Over the course of his many years of writing, Tolkien gave us mainly two different explanations. In his earlier writings, he postulates Ungoliant to be a Maya, and thus one of the lesser immortal spirits that entered creation after it was sang into being. As such, he assumed her to be one of the Maiar whom Melkor had seduced at the very beginning to serve him, much like the Balrogs. Yet later he wrote down a different theory. As is told to us in the Ainulindale, the world was created through a song sung by the immortal spirits called the Ainur, to please the one above all, Eru Ilúvatar. However, whilst the greater group of Ainur sang following the melody set forth by Ilúvatar, some of them followed a variation that Melkor had devised, and which clashed with the melody of Ilúvatar. And it was exactly in the clashes between the theme of Ilúvatar and the discord of Melkor, Tolkien later postulated, that evil beings arose, neither planned nor directly created by Melkor, but which afterwards afflicted the world and hated both the designs of Ilúvatar as well as Melkor. It is uncertain what form these evil beings took, but the possibility that Ungoliant could be one of them still remains. In the end, there is no final conclusion given to us through the lore, and thus there is no way to know for certain what kind of creature Ungoliant was, or is. For though we are told that all her direct offspring have perished long ago, with Shelob being the last of her brood to die, Ungoliant's own death is only a rumor. So perhaps she still lives, and still hungers. Thus we conclude this chapter and this video. Did the knowledge surprise you? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed it and would like to learn more of the inner workings of Arda, be sure to subscribe and click the bell icon to be notified of the next chapter in the Mysteries of Westerness, and learn about another nightmare creature that stalked the nights, not just in the elder days, but all the way down to the days of the War of the Ring, the werewolves of Sauron. But today, I have been Irgikor Kuruvane, and I wish you all Namarie Meldonyar.